In 2006, after nearly a 20-year absence, Superman flew back onto the big screen in the much-anticipated Superman Returns. The release of this movie was very exciting, as not only did fans of the Man of Steel now have the chance to see the big guy himself in a new epic adventure, but this was to be a continuation of the classic Christopher Reeve Superman movies, taking audiences back to that much-loved world that they grew up with. So surely this would be the ultimate Superman extravaganza, right? Well, maybe not. Some people felt that Superman Returns didn't so much fly like a speeding bullet, but more like a very slow one, earning this Superman movie the reputation of being sluggish and boring, as well as just depressing and miserable. But underneath all the criticisms, is there a deep and meaningful movie to be found? Is this just more of an emotional journey rather than an action-packed adventure? And people at the time just weren't prepared for a more psychological Superman. A Superman story which deals with the turmoil that he must face when he returns to Earth after 5 years, only to discover that Lois Lane and the world has moved on without him. Oh, and Lex Luthor is back and wants to create a kryptonite island for real estate or something. Well, today we're going to try and find out. So it's time to try and stay awake as we explore what many refer to as the boring Superman movie, as we look into 10 things that you didn't know about Superman Returns. And yes, I'm just going to get it out the way now, so it's out the way. This movie was directed by Bryan Singer and it stars Kevin Spacey. Two guys who don't have particularly great stories going around out there about them, which kind of makes talking about them a little bit awkward. So now that I've said it and acknowledged it, let's explore this movie constructively and check it out. Number 10. Superman: The Wilderness Years. Really, ever since the release of the Cannon-produced Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, there have been many attempts to make another Superman movie. Cannon themselves attempted to make a Superman 5, but the company went bankrupt. In the mid-90s, Warner Brothers were interested in making a Superman movie based on the popular Death of Superman comic story, with a script called Superman Reborn, with producer John Peters at the helm, which then evolved into Superman Lives, the infamously cancelled Superman movie, which was to star Nicolas Cage as Superman and was to be directed by Tim Burton. But the movie was shut down during the early production development. Yep, a full year of hard work and at least $30 million now simply just gone and wasted. Then in the early 2000s, there was plans for a Batman vs Superman movie, which was to be directed by Wolfgang Peterson. And I can remember reading an article at the time, which claimed that Jude Law would play Superman and Colin Farrell would play Batman. Then there was a new script written by J.J. Abrams called Superman: The Man of Steel, which was to be directed by Brett Ratner, which also had Christopher Reeve on board as a creative consultant, with several other actors being sought after to play Superman, including Josh Hartnett, Paul Walker, and Brandon Fraser. The script then evolved into a new one called Superman Flyby, and at one stage McG was on board as director, with Shia LaBeouf as Jimmy Olsen, Scarlett Johansson as Lois Lane, and either Johnny Depp or Robert Downey Jr. being sought after to play Lex Luthor. But this production still had no Superman. And so many more millions of dollars later, still nothing came from this production. Also keep in mind that while all this was going on, Mad Max director George Miller was developing a Justice League movie called Justice League Mortal. But just like the other productions, this too would be shelved. So needless to say, the production of this proposed Superman movie was one giant, expensive nightmare, with many people coming and going, and literally millions upon millions just being flushed down the toilet. It kind of makes you think, when is enough enough? When does it get to the stage where you think, yep, time to move on from this troubled production and let it go? It's clearly not happening. Well, Warner Brothers did find that X that marks the spot. Make that X-Men. Number 9. The recruitment of Bryan Singer got the ball rolling. In the year 2000, the cinematic movie of X-Men was released, followed by X-Men 2 in 2003. Both movies were hugely successful and praised by fans and critics. So naturally, Warner Brothers were interested in the director of the X-Men movies, Bryan Singer. Singer already had ideas of what to do for a Superman movie, which involves Superman returning to Earth after a 5-year absence while he was looking for Krypton. In fact, he came up with this premise while directing X-Men 2. Warner Brothers arranged a meeting with Singer, and after a vacation to Hawaii to outline a draft, Singer presented his ideas to Warner Brothers, of this being a story about Superman coming to terms with a world that has moved on without him, after disappearing for 5 years in an attempt to find Krypton. And not only that, but this Superman movie would be a continuation of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, be that Superman the movie and Superman 2, with 3 and 4 being ignored. I guess it was felt that connecting this movie to the Reeves universe was a lot safer, rather than starting with a new universe from scratch, as it's already been established that the Reeves universe is well loved, and had a lot of nostalgic admiration. That, and apparently Singer was a huge fan of the original Superman the movie, and wanted to make a homage/continuation. And so, just like that, Superman Returns was now in production, with Singer directing and John Peters co-producing, whom had been in the production ever since the Superman Lives stages. Because of this, Singer didn't direct the eagerly anticipated X-Men Last Stand. Now, I can't remember who it was, but I remember watching a YouTube video years and years ago, where the YouTuber said that he felt like in 2006, Bryan Singer kind of ruined 2 superhero movies. He ruined Superman Returns for taking on the role of director, and he ruined X-Men 3 for not directing that movie. Number 8. The new and familiar face of Superman. When it came to the casting of a new Superman for the 2000s, Bryan Singer wanted to follow in the footsteps of